Hey, what's up? Let's start today's video with a quick story. So back in April of 2017, right before I was about to become self-employed, I remember coming into my very last day of work. It was like 7:55 in the morning. Like I started work at 8 o'clock. And I remember, and mind you, right before I became self-employed, I was able to convince 3 people to work with me. I had 3 monthly clients going in, so I was assuming that I was gonna have a smooth transition into being self-employed. But then when I came in that morning, the very last day, I checked my email, and this guy I was working with, his name is Hank. That was his real name. He literally emailed me and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're not gonna need your services." And I had the 2 other clients I had, they were like, "Oh yeah, we don't need you either," all on the same day, my very last day of working at my corporate job. And now the natural response would be, okay, I could go ask for my job back because I quit. I wasn't fired from my corporate job, but you know, I decided to look into the future with the eyes of faith and not fear. And on today's episode of Monday Motivation with me, your host Marcus, I'm going to talk about how fear is holding you back from the life of happiness and success that you want. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to overcome that fear. Okay, now it's normal to feel fear. It's honestly, I think it's okay to feel fear, but I think it's one thing to feel fear and it's another thing to live in fear. Okay, now why is that? I think it's bad because of what Anaïs Nin said. She's a famous diarist. She said, "Life shrinks or contracts in proportion to one's courage. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage." Okay, this is a quote by Anaïs Nin. She said, "Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage." That quote means one's life gets bigger or smaller in terms of in proportion to how much courage that person has. Okay, so the thing about courage is that it makes our life worse. A lot of times we think when we see something we're afraid of, we're like, if I don't do this thing I'm afraid of, my life's gonna get better. But actually, and it's gonna stop this bad thing from happening. Actually, fear makes our life worse. Fear doesn't stop death, it stops life. And that's the interesting thing I've seen, is that fear is a kind of a liar. Fear doesn't stop death, it stops life. You ever been afraid of something? Like, for example, let's say you're in a boat in the middle of the ocean. You're like, "Oh man, if I jump in, all these sharks, all these big sharks and stuff are gonna, attack and eat me." Or let's say you're at work, you're like, "Oh, if I disagree with my boss, he's gonna fire me on the spot in front of all my coworkers and embarrass me." Like, a lot of times when we're afraid, we think of these crazy, extreme situations. And oftentimes as time goes by, we're just like, this stuff isn't even real. And a lot of times, I'll tell you another tip, is that fear lives in the future. One awesome thing about staying in the present moment, I probably will make a video about this one day, is that when you're in the present moment, you're not worried about the future. You're not worried about fear. Like I said, I think fear resides in the future. A lot of times we'll see stuff and we'll think of an uncertain future, like, "Oh man, this is gonna happen," or "this might happen." And a lot of worry and fear is stemmed from the future. So I think if we can stay in the present moment and look into the future with faith and not fear, that would be a lot better. When I had no clients, I had 0 income and a bunch of certain expenses, and I was like, I have no idea how I'm gonna pay. I remember just sitting there on my last day of my corporate job. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do my work and then worry about this problem later. And a few months went by, and I was fine. Nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. None of those bad images came to life. And you can probably see in your life, some of those extreme images of, the result of fear never took place. And that's why fear it's bad. Remember, fear does not stop death. It stops life. Okay. So instead of looking into the future with fear, let's look into the future with faith. I think it's better to live your life based on facts and faith more so than fear and feelings. Okay. A lot of people in the world, a lot of the problems that we have in our life come from the contrast, the juxtaposition between these two opposing elements, facts and faith and fear and feeling. I think I've seen more of the positive results from my life come when I adopt my life to facts and faith, not fear and feelings. Okay, because a lot of times fear lies to us and our feelings lie to us, and that's why I think it's important to make decisions based off of cause and effect and just real life stuff, real life laws that can be proven, because our feelings often lie to us. But in closing, I just want to talk about that. Fear doesn't stop death, it stops life. And life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. Okay, I know a lot of us want our lives to expand. We want to have more money, or we want to expand our friend group, or we want to expand our knowledge of something. But a lot of times we're afraid. And as Ben Franklin said, he's already given us the key to wealth, becoming materially wealthy, having money. He said, virtue leads to wealth, okay? And in one of my videos, if you go to my midweek motivation page, Midweek Motivation with Marcus W., I posted a video about 2 months ago that said, if you are persistent, you will get it. And if you are consistent, you will keep it. On that video, I talked about the 4 cardinal virtues of courage, justice, temperance, and prudence, okay? Now, I'm talking about courage on today's video. This is a hard thing to do, to be courageous. It was hard to sit there and be like, I have no income, but I have all these expenses. I was like, okay, I can either worry about the future. I did worry a little. I'm not gonna say I was perfect and didn't worry. I mean, but I didn't live in that. Okay, and it's okay to feel fear, but don't live in it, okay? And something interesting about fear is that most of all of our decisions are either based on fear or love. And one way you can see this is in your own life. Think about when you make decisions, are you making decisions out of fear or out of faith or out of love? Now, I've seen some of the best decisions in my life have been made out of love. I don't always do it, but some of the best decisions I made were out of love. Like I love what I'm doing, in terms of my vocation. I love what I'm doing more than I fear losing my comfortable income. And I think when talking about my self-employment example, I think when that comes into play, you can make things better for you, okay? So in closing, remember, fear does not stop death, it stops life. It stops good things from happening to you. We think this fear is going to prevent this bad thing from happening to me. It's the exact opposite. This fear is going to prevent good things from happening to me, okay? My life has gone up from just by living, okay, let me be courageous, like, let me do something hard. If you want to see something cool happen in your life, do something you're afraid of, okay? For real. You want to do something, want to see your life kind of become more exciting, do something you're afraid of. Say something that, in all, within the bounds of propriety, say things that are proper, but, do something you're afraid of. That's just something to think about. But if you enjoy this video, please share with your friends and family. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday on my respective channels. And as always, unsuccessful people make decisions based on their current situations, and successful people make decisions based on where they want to be. Make decisions based on where you be. Have courage in your life and do things that you're afraid of, and go towards the life you want, not the life you think you can get. Okay, thanks. Bye.